Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another Top Gun breakdown. Today we're talking about the PPG Online Regional that took place over the weekend. Going to break down top 16, talk a bit about the meta. Pretty big shift up from what we've been seeing the last few weeks, so we will talk about it. Want to shout out PPG for one, providing awesome graphics like this, and for two, just throwing awesome events. I will have a link down in the description that's going to show the top 16 deck lists. It's a link to PPG's event management site. There you should be able to find all the different info about upcoming tournaments and whatnot, as well as deck lists that they post for their events. That being said, if you're new here, definitely subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, get ready for events just like this, be sure to check out the Patreon down in the description below. You can read the articles there, see where my head's at competitively, as well as inquire about some coaching to prep for some of these events. That being said, we'll get right into it. So in this top 16, firstly, we have first place Majin Vegeta, very cool. Second place Vegex, I think this is the second week in a row we're seeing that. And then third place King Piccolo. Speaking of King Piccolo, the representation here for KP is absolutely insane. We saw this more so like the beginning of set 12, and then we saw Dark Broly make a rebound because it seemed like King Piccolo is being pushed out a bit, possibly by Shenron. But I think we're going to see that phenomena where either Dark Broly takes an overwhelming top slot or King Piccolo takes an overwhelming slot of tops, because King Piccolo seems to push out Dark Broly, but when any deck is pushing out King Piccolo, I think that's when we'll see more Dark Broly. But we haven't seen this sort of King Piccolo rep in quite a while, so it is kind of cool to see. Anyways, let's start talking about it deck by deck. So we do have Majin Vegeta here, and this was a best of one tournament. We have been seeing Majin Vegeta do really well in best of one. The main shtick of the deck is to play the Majin Quickening off of your one drop Obity, and that card basically allows you to play a Majin Buu Xeno for free as long as you have the combo in hand. It is sort of a combo deck combined with an aggro deck that also has like some mid-range capabilities, and those mid-range capabilities come from Lord Slug Out of Control. This guy is essentially a deadly defender, says your leader and unison card cannot be attacked while he's in rest mode. He himself being a 25k triple striker. 25k is not like the biggest number for triple strikers, but it's still a lot of pressure if your opponent doesn't negate it and you pump maybe like 1 to 2 super combos in it. The Majin Buu Xeno that follows this also says if your opponent decides to attack your leader, so let's say they clear the slug, if they decide to attack your leader, they still have to pitch 2 cards once per turn. So really strong defenses. That's where kind of the mid-range capability comes from. But that whole combo of playing that 4-drop Buu Xeno, looking at top 7, either playing this Lord Slug or the OG Buu Xeno 7-drop 25k dual attack double striker, is going to put a lot of pressure onto the opponent. Now, why is this deck doing so well in best of one? I kind of have a theory, and that kind of comes from my matchup knowledge with this deck versus Dark Broly. Now, from my personal experience, Dark Broly stomps Majin Vegeta. That's just what we actually tested this matchup quite a bit because Marcus was kind of heavily intended on playing Majin Vegeta at a few of the events we went to. So I have a lot of matchup experience with that. Now, the reason I say that is not to say that Majin Vegeta is bad. I think this is actually a good meta call because Dark Broly did so poorly this event. But the other thing I'm trying to say there is I think this deck is doing so well in best of one because people aren't prepared for removal for the Lord Slug Out of Control. That would really require a card like Max Power Kamehameha, which you'd probably really only see in side decks. Now, I know, for instance, my teammate Mike, who topped this event with Blue Baby, he main decks Max Power in Blue Baby. That's just like a kind of a rule of his personally. But not a lot of other players are maining Max Power right now, and I kind of understand why. You know, it's not the best card in the meta right now. It's not like it answers every single deck, so why would you main it for a best of one? Normally when you're looking for text to main for best of one, you want things that reach across a wide pool of decks that'll help you in certain matchups, or in a lot of matchups rather. And you know, Max Power is not really one of those cards, but that is that seems to be what allowed Majin Vegeta to do so well here, at least from my speculation. Is just people not being prepared to answer the Lord Slug Out of Control. That's just going to accrue you a ton of value over the course of several turns if it just sticks on the board. So really cool meta call here. I think Majin Vegeta is a really cool deck. Nice to see you get a first place. Then we have King Piccolo. So once again, just a ton of rep for King Piccolo. We haven't seen this in several weeks. It is kind of fitting, in my opinion, that this is, you know, happening right now. But what I do want to shout out is my teammate Marcel Russell for getting 4th place with his King Piccolo build. And the reason I'm kind of calling out his list is because he did not play Violent Rays in his entire deck list, not one copy. He actually went to main deck 4 copies of testing the opposition, and he's still top 4 of the event, guys. So I just kind of want to point that out there. I know a lot of people aren't really huge fans of the cards that cost a lot of money, and I totally get that. I would not want to shell out $70 for $70 each for a playset of Violent Rays, which is what they're priced at right now at the time of recording. So I totally understand that. But I do want to let you guys know that Marcel was still able to do very well in this tournament without Violent Rays, one of the most expensive cards in red. Now that's not to say his build was entirely budget. He was still playing Supreme Kai of Time, the secret rare, but I think if you just swap that out for Heroine's Lineage, that would be a much more budget friendly build for King Piccolo that I think could still do very well. So I want to point that out. I think it's really cool that Marcel did this without Violent Rays, and I think it's a pretty cool like beacon of hope for you guys out there that don't want to shell out a ton of money on staples, which again, I totally get it. Take a look at Marcel's deck list, which again will be in the description below. See if you can get some inspiration and really just tailor your gameplay to try without Violent Rays if you're a player who doesn't want to shell out the money for that. Then we have Shenron. Now the split here, we have 3 aggro, 1 control. Aggro obviously taking a more dominant role in this format. And I think the Shenron aggro thing is another thing that does help push out King Piccolo. But it is kind of surprising to see so much Sin aggro and so much King Piccolo in the same environment. Now it's entirely possible that, you know, the KP players and the Sin players didn't really run into each other until Top Cut. But even then, King Piccolo made it further than Sin. So I don't know, maybe King Piccolo has adapted in some way to help beat Shenron. I actually do think Testing the Opposition can be a really good card for helping beat the aggro version of Sin, because if they drop the early Cell Xeno, negate it once, Testing the Opposition, and then you have the blocker ready to go to block the second attack, that can mean a whole lot against stopping Shenron's Cell Xeno combo. So that definitely could be a phenomenon that happened. Maybe that's the way that King Piccolo has adapted to start beating Shenron. Then we have the one blue baby. Shout out to my teammate Mike once again. Now I know from just talking to Mike over and over again about this deck, he absolutely loves it. But one of his MVP cards that some lists don't even play is Vegeta Ready to Rumble. Now I totally kind of understand not playing it because it is a 3-drop counter attack, which is kind of expensive as far as your counters go in blue baby, even though its cost is reduced by 1. But I think there's a really good appeal to this card in best of 1 as opposed to best of 3, because there are probably gonna be a lot less cards that are able to stop Vegeta Ready to Rumble. You have some people main deck teching like Omen of Awakening, which Marcel also teched in his deck, some people playing Super Kamehameha, but a lot of decks aren't teching that until you get to the seasoned players that kind of know how to tech for best of 1, right? So a card like Vegeta Ready to Rumble seems to pick up a lot of value in best of 1, as we're best of 3 if people are playing answers to blue baby, either cards that stop the effect of Vegeta Ready to Rumble or cards that prevent baby from playing Vegeta Ready to Rumble altogether. I can totally see how this card is really good in best of 1. Now don't get me wrong, I know Mike will absolutely play this card in best of 3, but I did kind of want to mention that because it's something I thought of where this card kind of gains advantages in best of 1 versus best of 3. Then we have Broly Surge, man. When's the last time we've seen this deck top? This is really cool. Now, no surprise here that this deck seemed to abuse Piccolo Jr. Eradicator of Peace. It's just the best red-green card. There's really no getting around that. It is pretty cool, though, that it's able to carry a leader like this that we haven't seen in quite some time. The leader still got super strong effects, like becoming a double striker out of nowhere, as well as KOing a battle card ignoring barrier. Pretty much the effect of Mass Sand Primal Carnage secret rare on a leader, which you can't really sleep on that. That's really really one of the really cool things I saw about this list, though, is I believe they're playing 3 copies of Dark Rejuvenator Toa. If you read this card, it untaps one of your 2 costs or less, which means it untaps Piccolo Jr. Eradicator of Peace, allowing it to attack again, burn your opponent again if they're above the threshold, and draw 2 more cards. It's really cool. Now, supplying the overwhelm for this, getting the cards in the drops, actually really easy because your leader requires you to combo cards to draw. So it almost seems like a match made in heaven sort of combo. This is a really cool, innovative thing that I really like. Shout out to this player for coming up with this strategy and doing well with it. And then we do have the Dark Broly. Now, Dark Broly, I talked about it 1,000,000 times. Not too much to go over, but one thing I do want to talk about is the main deck tech Super Kamehameha. This is a main deck tech that I've been recommending my patrons that want to play black decks like Dark Broly, like Gogeta Xeno. It's a really good slot in best of 1 for exactly what we were talking about with Blue Baby, stopping things like Vegeta Ready to Rumble and other floodgates like Heroic Prospect, Gohan Baby's Minion, and other cards like that, like Topo Reg 8 also, that give Dark Broly a bit of a tough time when they're trying to go for game. The main deck Super Kamehameha slot is a really good call. I definitely like that in this deck. And then we have Launch Red Blue, basically playing Invoker. We see this every now and again that, you know, Invoker obviously does well from time to time, but we've been seeing a little bit more of like this Launch Invoker deck, which is kind of cool. Now, I think where Launch kind of comes into the picture is that she's better in the combo step than pure Invoker is. Now, in this deck, for instance, you lose the ability to play your Victory Strike, but I think the burn combo is honestly what ends the game more often than not. Like, pretty much every deck in the meta can self-awaken either via the leader or different cards in their main deck. So Victory Strike's not always going to be able to catch someone at like 8 or 7 life. It's just not very likely to happen. So I think if you just forego Victory Strike and you play the burn combo, and you make your deck better in the combo step to defend against attacks, that seems like a pretty good place for launch to be at. One of the main cards is a 4-drop Frieza that came out in the UI Goku starter deck. I forget the name of it, but it's in the deck list, which is in the description once again. When you combo with that, I believe you get to dump an extra card from your deck to the drop, which is exactly where you want your catastrophic blows to be, so that when you play Rival Seeker, you can pick them back up and do the whole burn combo like that. So pretty cool here that launch is kind of taking over Invoker's role. I guess it depends what you're looking for. You're looking for a deck that has better floodgates, probably would be Invoker, or if you're looking for a deck that is better in the combo step, launch is probably going to be your pick. And then we do have Vegex, which came in 2nd place. Another high placing for Vegex. I think it's 3 weeks in a row that we've seen some very high placings for Vegex. Cool thing here is Vegex has a really strong capability to main deck Koitsukai Mechanical Courage, which a lot of decks would just sideboard. But with Vegex inherently milling so many cards, Koitsukai is a great main deck tech for best of 3, or best of 1 rather, but even for best of 3, where you could just play it in your main deck, reliably get into the drop area, and stop your opponent from playing on your turn. That hits rival decks, that hits decks playing Tobo Righteous Aid, that hits Blue Baby. So Koitsukai being a really good main deck tech for Vegex is a really solid thing the deck has going for it. But anyways, guys, that is going to wrap up today's video. Once again, deck lists are in the description. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.